Hey guys, welcome back to the exercises for Chapter 13 of Price Analysis. Let's continue finishing up the last little bits that we have. And I noticed, remember I inserted this column called this column header called Net Revenue, Meal, Cash, and Futures? Well, I just realized that we did already have that column header, so we don't need it anymore. I added it twice. So I'm going to delete this column header. I'm really sorry for the confusion. And I'm going to scoot this one back. Now there is one more column that I want us to calculate, and that's going to be our hedged processing profit per bushel. We'll see why that's going to be an interesting number to calculate in a second. Okay, so we really have only two cells to fill in. Here we're going to calculate our hedged processing profit, and we've basically got our cost calculated here in total dollars. And remember, we took our prices times quantities, so this is the whole deal, the actual money out of our pocket. Same thing for these revenue numbers for oil and for meal. So if we want to calculate our hedged processing profit, our hedged gross processing margin, we just need to add these three together. Now normally you would add your revenue and subtract your cost, but since we've already got our minus built into the cost column, we can just add the three together. So there we've got it. We've got a total profit of $22,238 for crushing 50,000 bushels of soybeans. Now for this last one, I just want to take this into a per bushel number. So I'm just going to take our 22,000 and divide it by the total number of bushels crushed. That's 50,000 bushels. Hey guys, the number that came out here looked a little funny to me, so I was double checking my formulas, and I noticed a mistake here in column F. So please go in here and check it out. So the cash part is correct. We've got our futures price plus the basis, giving us our cash price, divide by 100 to make it into dollars per pound instead of cents per pound, multiply by 11 because for every bushel we crush, we get 11 pounds of oil, and times 50,000 because that's how many bushels we crushed. But we have a problem here. So the second term is supposed to be our futures profit or loss, and we've got this price difference correct. We sold in July, so that gets the plus, and we bought back in August, so that gets the minus. Divide by 100 to make it dollars, that's fine. 60,000 pounds per contract, that's correct also. But as written, this is for one contract, and we did not only sell one contract, we sold 9 contracts. So we need to do that, and it should come out correct. And this was the number I was expecting to see, so that's right. Although I was also glancing over here, and I noticed we have a mistake here too. Here it's correct. Where we're buying, it should be buying 10 soybeans, selling 9 oil, selling 11 meal, and this should mirror it here. So my apologies for that too. It should be buy 9 oil and buy 11 meal. And that's reflected over here when we do our meal column. We've got the 11 built into this number. That's 50,000 bushels. Sorry, that's 11 contracts times 200,000 pounds per contract. Alright, so when you get these numbers, you should have everything all set. Let's just take a minute to think about the last question. So we've done all of the parts 1 through 4, except we have not yet done number 5. So number 5 says, what are the things that cause our hedged gross processing margin to be different than what we expected in the August gross processing margin from row 1? And in particular, I'm going to switch back to the Excel sheet. When we were placing our hedge on July 1st, we expected to see this gross processing margin, and we placed a hedge, so it should be pretty close, unless we're getting a lot of uncertainty coming in from the few places that it comes in. So where do we get imperfectness in our hedge from? Well, we know that basis uncertainty will cause our hedge to be less effective, and we have 3 bases here to worry about. We've got a bean basis, a meal basis, and an oil basis. And let's think about whether the basis moves that we saw were helping us or hurting us. So here when we hedged, the basis was minus 20, and by the time it got to be August when we actually were in the cash market, it went down to minus 25. So think about, is that good for the crusher or bad for the crusher? Now remember, they're in levels, they're basically hedged. That the futures price change is going to be recouped by their futures position. But this change in the basis will definitely affect their profitability. And since they're buying beans, they're going to be buying at a lower price because they were 20 under and now they're 25 under. So this should have been helping their profit margin, not hurting. Let's come over here to meal. Same thing, not the same thing, but the meal basis is getting stronger. It was minus 10 and now it's minus 8. So instead of selling meal for 10 under the futures contract, we're selling meal for 8 under the futures contract. That's a higher price, and that should be good for us as well. So this basis was in our favor. Now let's talk about the oil basis. So the oil basis went from minus 3 to minus 5, and that is indeed not in our favor because we were going to be selling for 3 under, now we're selling for a lower price of 5 under. That's bad for us. So we had 2 goods and one bad in terms of basis change. Is there any other thing that could cause imperfectness or uncertainty in our hedge? Well, yeah, there is that one other thing, and that comes from the fact that in our 9-11-10 spread, we don't get a perfect hedge in the soybean oil market. We get a perfect hedge for soybeans, and we get a perfect hedge for soybean meal. These two numbers match. But notice, if we crush 50,000 bushels of soybeans, we get 550,000 pounds of soybean oil. If we hedge that with 9 contracts of soybean oil futures, then each contract is 60,000 pounds, so we've hedged 540,000 pounds of soybean oil. We're 10 short. We're underhedged by 10,000 pounds in soybean oil. So this underhedge could also affect our uncertain. It will also affect our hedge. We're exposed to price changes in the soybean oil market on 10,000 pounds. But if we notice what happened in the soybean oil market, the price level actually went up. So our exposure to the price level change of 10,000 bushels, that was in our favor as well. So we were hedged at 33.24 on most of it, but we got a benefit of the price increasing by about 0.7 something in this case. Hey guys, so one final note. I was a little surprised to see that our gross processing margin went down so low, even though we had 2 out of the 3 basis moving in our favor, and the underhedge was actually working in our favor since the price went up, which was good for us in the oil market. So I checked out what each of those components would do to our profitability, and I've calculated it here in this section. So the bean basis went down by 5 cents, and we benefited from that to the tune of 5 cents. And that benefited us for every bushel that we crushed. So 5 cents times 50,000 bushels, we got a benefit of $2,500 from the basis moving down by 5 cents. Similarly, in meal, the basis moved down by $2. And remember, that's dollars per ton, so I'm just dividing by 2,000 to make it dollars per pound, multiplying it by the number of pounds that we have, that we produced, and we get a benefit of about 2,200 from that. Now here's where the biggie comes in. That oil basis, which seemed innocuous, of decreasing by 2 cents per pound from -3 to -5. Well, that was on 550,000 pounds, and this was not in our favor. This was against us, so I've got a minus sign. That actually comes out to minus $11,000, which is already swamping everything else. So that you can see that's where the effect came from. Now, the last thing is that we had 10,000 bushels that were not hedged, and because the price went up from July to August, that was actually good for us. We made whatever that difference is, 33.86 minus 33.24, and we made that on 10,000 pounds. So that only gets us $62, which isn't that much. If we add all these things together, we can see that we end up in the hole minus $6,000 because of this basis move in oil. So here I just formatted it as a currency for, I don't know why, I just wanted to make it look like that. And if we calculate what that minus $6,200 is on a per bushel basis, we'll just take that number and divide by the number of bushels we crushed, 50,000, and we find out we lost 12 cents per bushel because of this uncertainty in the basis, particularly the move against us in the oil market. Now, this should be comforting to us. If we say, okay, here's the gross processing margin that we got, and add in what, suppose we were somehow able to recover this uncertainty from the imperfection in our hedge. So I added these together, 38 plus 12, you get 51, which happens to be what we expected to get when we were looking at the forward gross processing margin for August delivery. And that should always work out if things are going correctly, that the difference between what you get and what you expected is coming from the imperfections in your ability to hedge. And in our example, that was coming from basis in the bean, meal, and oil market, and the fact that we could not perfectly hedge the oil with the 9-11-10 ratio. Okay guys, so that does it for the exercises for chapter 13. Go ahead and turn those in to Compass, and we will continue later.